I'm writing this like a warning because I wish someone had warned me, and because it still doesn't sit right in my head when I think about how normal it looked from far away. Back then, I was a cart pusher at a Walmart off a state highway, one of those stores where the building sits back from the road and the parking lot feels like its own weather system. Heat ripples in summer, wind tunnels in winter, rain that you can see coming across the asphalt like a sheet. I was 19, saving for a used truck, and my world was a gray vest, a mule machine that pulled 20 carts at a time, and the constant fluorescent buzz inside the doors that you could hear even when you were outside if the entrance was open. What I didn't know when I started is how much you watch vehicles. Not because you want to, because you have to. You're out there alone with rows of cars and the sound of traffic and the wind. You notice which cars have toddlers unbuckling themselves. You notice the old guys who sit in their trucks with the engine running and a blank stare. You notice the couple arguing in the minivan. You notice the person who parks too far out and doesn't go in the store. You notice the cars that circle. It started as nothing. There was a white sedan that would be near the edge of the lot, always in a different spot, never close to the doors, like it didn't want the cameras to get too clean of an angle. I wouldn't have thought about it except it kept showing up on my shifts, late afternoons into evening, the time when the heat comes off the pavement and the store feels busiest, but also weirdly hollow in the far corners. The sedan was always clean, no dents, no stickers, no license plate frame, just plain. At first I told myself it was an employee. People park far out to avoid door dings, but it wasn't in the employee line on the side. It was out in the ocean of spaces, shifting positions like a person moving around a room to stay out of someone's direct view. The first time I felt it, I was pushing a line of carts back to grocery. The automatic doors kept shushing open and closed, letting out a breath of colder air and that smell Walmart has, rubber floor mats, stale popcorn from the deli, whatever citrus cleaner they used on the vestibule, receipt paper dust in the air if the wind was right. I glanced across the lot and the sedan's headlights were on, even though it wasn't dark. In the driver's seat there was a person. I couldn't see details, just a shape, facing the store. When I came back out with another line, the sedan had moved a row over, same posture, headlights still on. There's a thing that happens when you're outside working and you realize you're in someone else's routine. You're not a person to them, you're a repeating object. I mentioned it to another cart pusher, a guy named Malik who worked mornings but sometimes overlapped. "White sedan?" he said like it was already a character. "Yeah, I seen it. Dude just sits." "Maybe he's waiting on someone." "Waiting on someone for 3 hours?" Malik shrugged and pushed his own line of carts. "Not my business." That's how everything gets treated there. Not my business. Because if it's your business, you end up talking to a manager, and the manager ends up talking to someone else, and then you're the one who made it a thing, and now everyone's annoyed. But it became my business the night I realized it was tracking me. It was a Friday. Those were the worst because the lot stayed full late and the cart bays emptied fast. You'd get behind and then you'd be sprinting, trying to keep up, the mule whining, the metal rattling like a chain. The sky was turning that bruised purple and the parking lot lights were waking up one by one. I had earbuds in, against policy, but everyone did it until someone got caught. And I was halfway through a song when I noticed the sedan was closer. It was parked in a row I had to cross to get to the far cart corral. Headlights off now, engine on, I could tell because the exhaust shimmered behind it. I pushed past, eyes forward. You learn not to look like you're looking, but my stomach tightened the way it does right before you slip on ice. When I came back with carts, the sedan had moved again. It was on the path between me and the doors. That was the moment I stopped pretending it was random. I went inside and found the nearest team lead. Her name was Sandra, and she always had a radio clipped to her waistband, the kind that crackled constantly with half-heard calls. "Sandra," I said, trying to keep my voice normal over the hum of the lights and the beeping registers. "There's a car out there, like, it keeps moving." She looked at me like I'd told her the sky was blue. "A car keeps moving?" "Yeah, white sedan. It's been out there a bunch. It keeps repositioning when I'm out pushing carts." Sandra's eyes flicked to the front windows, then back to me. "Are they doing something? Like bothering customers?" "I don't know. They're just watching." She sighed, the tired kind of sigh that comes from being asked to care about one more thing. "If they're not doing anything, we can't just go tell them to leave." "Can AP look at it?" She keyed her radio. "P, you got eyes on a white sedan? Front lot." A crackle, a man's voice, bored. "Which one? Lots full of white sedans." Sandra looked at me again like it was my fault for not bringing a more dramatic crime. If they do something, come tell me. I walked back outside feeling stupid, like I'd raised my hand in class and asked a question everyone knew was dumb. The air had cooled. The front vestibule doors slid open behind me with that soft pneumatic sound. I grabbed the mule handle and started toward the far cart corral. The sedan was there. It hadn't moved while I was inside. It was sitting angled slightly, like it had pulled in crooked on purpose. The driver's window looked darkened, tinted. I told myself to keep going. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself it was a coincidence, and I was making a pattern out of nothing. Then the sedan's brake lights came on as I approached the cart corral, and it rolled forward, slow, controlled, into the lane behind the row of parked cars, matching my pace, not pulling up, not passing, just following. My hands went sweaty on the mule handle. I pretended I needed to adjust the carts and stopped. The sedan stopped. I started again. It started again. That's when I felt the fear move from my head into my body. My skin went tight. My mouth went dry. I looked for other people. There were customers near the doors with bags, but out where I was, it was mostly empty. A couple of cars moving through lanes, a family loading groceries 2 rows over. Too far to hear me if I said anything. I decided to go back toward the store. The sedan pivoted in the lane like it had been waiting for me to choose. I didn't run. Running makes you look like prey. I walked fast, pushing the carts harder than normal, wheels squealing. I could feel my heart punching. The sedan kept pace, staying behind the line of carts like it was using them as an excuse. When I got close to the doors, I veered toward the side entrance near automotive, thinking maybe I could cut around. The sedan turned too, and that's when it got close enough that I saw the driver clearly through the windshield. It was a man, middle-aged maybe, hairline back. He wasn't looking at the road. He was looking at me, steady, expression blank, like he was studying the label on a shelf. I made a mistake then, a small, human mistake. I glanced at his license plate, and because I glanced, he knew I was scared. He lifted his hand and pointed, not at the store, not at the cart corral, at me, just a small gesture like, you. I got inside and the air conditioning hit my sweat like a slap. I went straight to the service desk because it was staffed and bright and there were cameras above it. The customer service associate looked up from a roll of receipt paper, annoyed. "You good?" she asked. "There's a guy outside," I said. "In a white sedan. He's following me around the lot." She blinked once like she was deciding whether I was serious. Then she picked up the phone and called for a manager, not AP. That's how it always goes. People don't want to pull AP in unless they have to. While we waited, I stood in the vestibule corner and watched through the glass doors. The sedan idled in a lane facing the entrance, not parked. The driver's face was turned toward the doors. A manager came up, a man named Keith who always smelled like stale coffee and had the look of someone who'd been promoted too fast. "What's going on?" he asked. I explained. I felt my voice shake and hated that. Keith looked outside, then at me. "Did he say anything to you?" Keith asked. "No." "Did he get out of the car?" "No." Keith's shoulders relaxed like those were the only criteria that mattered. "We can't trespass someone for sitting in their car. If he approaches you or a customer, we'll call the police." I stared at him. "He's not a customer." "You don't know that." I felt something hot rise in me. Anger, helplessness, embarrassment. The service desk associate was watching like she wished she was somewhere else. Keith leaned closer, lowering his voice like he was being helpful. "Go to a zone inside for a bit. Let him get bored." A zone. Like reorganizing shampoo bottles would solve it. I did what he said because that's what you do when you're 19 and wearing a vest. I went into HBA and faced the shelves, pulling items forward, making them look tidy. The fluorescent lights buzzed. Somewhere, a baby cried. The intercom did a price check call. Time kept passing like it didn't care. Every so often I'd glance toward the front. The sedan was still there, sometimes closer, sometimes farther, always in sight. Eventually it got dark enough that the glass reflected more of the inside than the outside. The parking lot lights made everything beyond them look like a dim ocean. My shift ended at 10. I clocked out at the time clock by the break room, where the vending machines hummed and the air smelled like microwaved noodles and somebody's cheap cologne. My hands shook when I punched out. I took my vest off and stuffed it in my backpack like it could protect me if I wore it. I stood near the front for a while, pretending to check my phone, waiting for the sedan to leave. It didn't. I made another mistake then. I decided I couldn't stay forever. I told myself I was being dramatic. I told myself I just wanted to go home. I walked out. The automatic doors slid open. Warm night air, exhaust, damp asphalt smell because earlier it had rained and the lot still held it. I walked fast toward my car, parked in the employee area on the side. As I moved along the building, I couldn't see the sedan anymore. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. It made my fear sharper, like losing sight of a dog you know is loose. When I got to my car, my fingers fumbled the keys. I heard an engine start somewhere, a slow roll of tires on wet pavement. I looked up and saw the white sedan turning the corner of the building, coming toward the side lot. Not speeding, not dramatic, just inevitable. I got in and locked the doors so hard my finger hurt. I started my car and pulled out. The sedan stayed behind me at a distance that felt practiced. I took the first exit out of the lot and turned right toward the highway. The sedan turned right. I told myself it was coincidence. People go right, people go home, people go anywhere. At the next light I turned left, not the way I normally went. The sedan turned left. My throat closed. My palms were slick on the steering wheel. I didn't know what to do because all the advice you hear is for big dramatic situations. This was quiet and controlled. I drove toward a gas station with bright lights. The sedan followed. I pulled into the gas station and parked by a pump, not getting out. The sedan slowed at the entrance, then kept going, circling once through the lot, like it was deciding. It didn't stop. It went back out onto the road. I sat there for 5 minutes, breathing too fast, staring at my own reflection in the windshield. When I finally drove home, I took the long way, looping through neighborhoods I didn't know well, watching my mirrors so much I nearly ran a stop sign. I didn't see the sedan again that night. But here's why I'm writing this as a warning. It didn't end with a clean resolution. No cops, no confrontation, no satisfying, and then he got arrested. For the next 2 weeks, the sedan showed up on my shifts. Not every day, but often enough that I started to dread seeing white paint in the lot. Sometimes it would be far out, headlights on, facing the store. Sometimes it would be closer, near the cart corral. Sometimes it would be in the side lot like it was waiting for employees. I tried switching break times. I tried staying inside. I tried leaving with other people. I told myself I was overreacting, then I'd see it move when I moved and my body would prove I wasn't. I went to AP again. I got a different answer. If he's not breaking rules, we can't do much. I got told to write down the plate number if I could. I couldn't. It was always angled or too far. And the one time I got close enough, I froze because I remembered the finger pointing at me. Eventually, I quit. I told my mom it was for school. I told my friends it was because the job sucked. Both were true, but not the whole truth. Years later, I still scan parking lots without thinking. I still notice cars that idle too long. I still feel a small, unreasonable jolt when a white sedan pulls in behind me at a light. And every time I think about that man's face through the windshield, flat, patient, like he had time, I wonder what would have happened if I'd had to walk to my car in the dark alone, or if the gas station had been closed, or if I'd convinced myself one more time that it was nothing. I never found out who he was. That's the part that sticks. I was an overnight stalker for about 8 months, which is long enough to learn the building's nighttime personality, but not long enough to get used to it. People picture overnight as spooky because the store is closed, but most nights aren't scary. Most nights are just loud in a different way. Pallet jacks clacking over the backroom concrete, shrink wrap tearing, radios chirping with management calls, someone laughing too hard in the break room because they're trying to stay awake. The store is brighter than you think. Those lights don't dim. The fluorescent hum becomes your ocean. What changed everything for me wasn't a shadow or a noise. It was the slow realization that there was a person in the store who wasn't supposed to be there, and that the reason we didn't catch them sooner was because we were doing what we always did, working on autopilot. I'm still not sure exactly when it started. We closed at 11. The closing announcements were the same every night, the voice over the intercom trying to sound friendly while pushing people out. Attention Walmart shoppers, the time is now 10:45. Our store will be closing in 15 minutes. The front end would start funneling people toward the registers. Customer service would count down the last returns. A manager would do a walk, checking bathrooms, checking fitting rooms, checking garden center if it was open. At midnight, the store belonged to us. The doors were locked. The vestibule lights still glowed against the glass. Outside, the parking lot was a black plane with islands of light under the lampposts. That night, I was assigned to canned goods and baking, aisles that smell like cardboard and sugar and metal. I had earbuds in one ear, again, not allowed, and I was cutting open cases with a box cutter that was too dull because nobody ever swapped them like they were supposed to. We were short-staffed, which meant the back room was stacked with pallets waiting to go out. Steel racks towering, bins labeled, the whole thing smelling like dust and detergent. The unload team had left a mess of shrink wrap on the floor. I remember stepping over it and thinking someone was going to eat it on the concrete. Around 12:30, I heard the overhead radio crackle. Manager to the front, manager to the front. Normal. Managers always got called to the front for some little thing. Register tape, a customer who refused to leave, a door alarm that chirped for no reason. I didn't pay attention. What I did notice was a shopping cart wheel squeak, not the rolling squeak of an employee cart full of cardboard, a customer cart squeak, the kind you hear at noon when the store is busy and someone's dragging a cart that needs maintenance. It came from somewhere behind the aisles, closer to grocery. I paused with a can of tomatoes in my hand, listening. The store has a way of swallowing sound at night. You think you hear something and it could just be a pallet jack in another department. Then I heard it again. A faint squeak, squeak, like a cart being pushed slowly. I stepped out of the aisle and looked down the main grocery action alley. Empty, long, bright. A straight shot of polished concrete and end caps, everything faced and neat. "Hey," I said into the air quietly, feeling stupid. "Store's closed." No answer. I went back to stocking, telling myself maybe it was maintenance moving something. We had floor cleaners sometimes, big ride-on machines that made a different sound, but maybe someone was using a regular cart for supplies. A few minutes later, I saw movement at the far end of the aisle, aisle 19, baking and spices, a person low to the ground, like they were crouching. My chest did that weird tightening thing. I leaned out farther. The person shifted behind an end cap, partially hidden by a display of flour. I caught a glimpse of a hood, dark fabric. I pulled my earbud out. Suddenly, everything felt too quiet. I could hear my own breathing. The buzz of the lights was louder. I took my radio off my belt. Overnight stalkers don't always carry them, but I did because my team lead liked to bark instructions, and I hated being hunted down. I said into the radio, trying to sound casual. "Hey, this is Tyler in grocery. Is maintenance out here with a cart?" Static, then a voice. "Negative. Why?" I thought I saw somebody in baking. There was a pause that lasted long enough to make me regret speaking. Then, "Where exactly?" "Aisle 19, back end." "Stay where you are," my team lead said, voice sharper now. "Do not approach. I'm coming." That should have made me feel better. It didn't. It made it real. I stood at the mouth of my aisle, staring down the long corridor of products. Everything looked exactly the same. Labels, colors, the same corporate calm. But now it felt like a stage set. I heard the squeaky cart again, closer, then it stopped. A shape appeared at the far end of the aisle, a person standing up slowly, like they'd been crouched and were deciding whether to be seen. It was a man, maybe in his 20s. Hoodie up, hands in the front pocket. He wasn't holding a cart, he was just standing there looking toward me. There's a stupid thought that flashed through my mind. Maybe he's lost, maybe he's an employee I don't recognize. Then I remembered the locked doors. "Store's closed?" I said, louder. My voice echoed a little, which made it feel wrong. He didn't respond. He took one step forward, then stopped like he was testing the distance. I backed up, not running, just backing up toward the action alley where there were cameras. I clicked my radio again. "He's here. He's looking at me." "Keep eyes," my team lead said. "Manager and AP are en route. Do not engage." A P at night was usually one guy, maybe two. The AP office was up front by the entrance, monitors stacked, a desk with reports, the smell of old coffee. They watched cameras and wrote shrink notes. They weren't bouncers. The man took another step. He moved in a slow, careful way, like he didn't want to make noise. I felt my hands start to shake. I hated that. I wanted to be calm. I wanted to be the kind of person who stays calm. I took one more step back and bumped into an end cap. A bag of rice slid a little. The small sound seemed to wake something in him. He turned his head, quick, like an animal, then looked back at me. And then he started walking faster, not sprinting, but deliberate, closing the distance. I turned and walked quickly down the action alley toward the front, radio in my hand, my heart thudding so hard it felt like it was in my throat. Behind me, I heard footsteps, rubber soles on concrete, too close. "Tyler!" my team lead shouted from somewhere ahead. "Tyler, over here!" I rounded an end cap into the main front aisle and saw my team lead and a salaried manager near the registers. The manager was holding a radio like a weapon. 2 other stalkers stood behind them, wide-eyed. "Back there," I gasped, pointing. The manager stepped forward, voice loud, rehearsed in that way managers have when they talk to customers who are about to be a problem. "Sir, the store is closed. You need to come with me to the front." The man stopped at the edge of the action alley, just within view, under bright lights. He looked smaller now, not mysterious. Just a person. He didn't say anything. He glanced toward the doors like he was calculating. A P finally appeared. Thin guy, polo shirt, keys on his belt. He looked annoyed, like he'd been dragged away from paperwork. "What's going on?" AP asked. "There's a customer in the store," the manager snapped. "He hid after closing." A P's face changed, like a switch. He lifted his radio. "I need PD, non-emergency. We have an individual refusing to exit." The man's eyes flicked to the AP guy, then to the manager, then to me. For a second we just stood there, a little group staring at each other across the polished floor like it was a line no one wanted to cross. Then the man bolted. He ran toward the back of the store, not the front, not toward escape, toward the aisles. "Don't chase," the manager yelled, but one of the stalkers, Brandon, always trying to prove something, took off after him anyway. I didn't move. My legs felt heavy. My brain was trying to keep up. We heard Brandon's footsteps fade, then a loud crash somewhere in grocery, like a display knocked over. The manager swore under his breath. "Everyone stay put," he said, but his voice didn't sound confident. We stood in that front area under the lights, and the store felt huge. A maze, a place where someone could disappear behind paper towels and pet food and nobody would know. A few minutes later, Brandon came back, breathing hard, eyes wild. "He's gone," he said. "He went back by receiving. I lost him." The manager looked at AP. A P looked at the manager. Nobody wanted to go into the back. The police arrived 15 minutes later. That's a long time when you're standing under fluorescent lights imagining someone hiding behind an end cap with a box cutter. 2 officers walked in through the front doors after the manager unlocked them. Their flashlights looked ridiculous in such bright light. But when they aimed them down the darkened seasonal aisles, you could see how many places there were for a person to crouch. They searched the store slowly, with AP guiding and the manager trailing, talking too much. I caught bits of it over the radio chatter. Check garden center. Check family bathroom. Search the back room. I stayed near the registers like I was told, hands clenched, feeling useless and exposed. They never found him. They found a cart in the baking aisle with a few items in it. Chips, a cheap phone charger, a hoodie off the apparel rack, like he'd been shopping after hours. They found a fire exit in the back that had been propped with a piece of cardboard, just enough to keep the latch from catching fully. Not open, just ready. The manager kept saying, he must have slipped out when we were distracted, like that explained it. The officers took statements. I told them what I saw. Hoodie, no words, walking fast. The pointing feeling of his stare. When they left, the store felt wrong, like the building had a thin spot where reality leaked. We went back to stocking because that's what you do. You face the shelves, you cut open cases, you pretend your hands aren't shaking. At 3 a.m., I was in baking again, forced to go back because that was my assignment and the pallets weren't going to stock themselves. I kept glancing at the ends of the aisle, expecting to see that hooded shape. I didn't. By the time my shift ended at 7 a.m., the sun was up and customers were coming in like nothing had happened. The automatic doors slid open, the smell of deli popcorn returned, the world reset itself. But I walked out to my car and felt, very clearly, that there was a piece missing from the story. Not a scary twist, just an absence. We never found out who he was or why he stayed. Sometimes I think he was just stealing. Sometimes I think he was homeless and needed warmth. Sometimes I think he wanted to see what it felt like to be alone in a store that big. And sometimes, when I'm in a big retail place late at night and I hear a cartwheel squeak in a quiet corner, my mind goes back to aisle 19 after midnight, and I feel that same slow, creeping confusion, like I'm watching a door close, but not seeing what's on the other side. I'll tell this the way it happened because the words are what stuck. Not the gun, not the money, the words. I was a cashier, front end, mostly evenings. I was 24 and already tired in a way that made me angry all the time. Angry at the customers who dumped clothes on the belt without hangers. Angry at the management that cut hours and then acted surprised when lines got long. Angry at myself for ending up there after telling everyone I wasn't going to. The front end has its own soundtrack, scanners beeping, receipt printers chattering, kids whining, the soft constant announcements from the intercom. If you work there long enough, you can tell which register is low on receipt paper, by the way it sounds. That night started with small annoyances. My register's receipt tape kept tearing crooked. The till was sticking. The customer before closing argued about a coupon until my team lead had to come override it. My feet hurt. At 10:50 p.m., the closing announcement came on, that polite voice reminding shoppers to bring final selections to the front. People ignored it, like always. I was at register 7. The aisle lights were bright, but somehow everything beyond the front end looked dim. Long aisles of products fading into distance, the store swallowing sound. The doors slid open and closed as late customers trickled out. My team lead, Gina, walked by and said, 10 minutes, don't start cash pull until we're clear. Yeah, I said, because saying more would have turned into a complaint. A guy came into my lane with a basket, late 20s maybe, baseball cap low, hoodie, nothing that screamed trouble, because if you work retail, you learn that trouble wears every kind of outfit. He put a couple of energy drinks and a pack of gum on the belt, normal end-of-night junk. Hey, I said, because that's what you say. He didn't answer. He stared at the card reader like it had personally offended him. I scanned the items. That'll be... I started. He leaned in slightly, close enough that I could smell cigarettes and something sour like he hadn't eaten. His voice was quiet, flat. Open the drawer, he said. I blinked. What? Open the drawer, he repeated. Don't look at me. There's a second, right there, where your brain tries to make it into something else. A joke, a misunderstanding, a weird flirt, anything except what it is. He lifted the bottom edge of his hoodie just enough for me to see a handgun tucked into his waistband. Not waved around, not dramatic, just shown like a proof. My throat tightened so fast it felt like I couldn't swallow. I looked down at my hands on the counter. My fingers were suddenly clumsy, like they belonged to someone else. Okay, I said. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. He kept his voice low, like he didn't want attention. Now. I hit the no-sale key. The register drawer popped open with a loud, cheerful clack that felt obscene in the quiet. He said, "Put it in the bag." I grabbed a plastic bag from the carousel. The thin plastic stuck to itself. My hands were shaking, and I hated that because shaking felt like giving him something. I scooped bills out, 1s, 5s, 10s. The bigger bills were under the tray. I pulled the tray out like I'd been trained. My movements were practiced because Walmart trains you for everything except the feeling of a gun 2 feet away. More, he said. I took the 20s, the 50s. My breathing sounded too loud in my ears. The fluorescent lights buzzed above us like nothing had changed. Nah. I wanted to hit the panic button. We had one under the counter. They told us it went straight to management and AP. I couldn't remember if it alerted police automatically or not. Training videos blur when you actually need them. He said, "Don't." He'd seen my hand twitch toward the underside of the counter. He wasn't guessing. He was watching. "Okay," I said again, stupidly. He nodded toward the coin. "Leave it." I did. Coin is heavy. Coin slows you down. He knew what he wanted. Behind him, Gina was at the service desk counting something, head down. 2 other registers were still open with customers. It wasn't empty. That was the worst part. This was happening in the middle of normal life. He took the bag from me with one hand. The other stayed near his waistband. "Now close it," he said. I pushed the drawer shut. It clicked. The machine beeped like it was satisfied. He leaned in closer. "Don't follow me. Don't be a hero." "I'm not," I said, and the anger in me flared for a second because it was true. I wasn't trying to be anything. I was trying to survive. He walked away calmly, basket left behind, moving toward the doors like a regular customer. If you weren't looking, you'd never notice. For 3 seconds, nobody reacted. The store kept breathing. Then my body caught up and I started shaking so hard my knees felt weak. Gina looked up. "You okay?" she called, annoyed at first like she thought I was slacking. I tried to speak and nothing came out. My mouth opened and closed like I was underwater. I raised my hand and pointed toward the doors. That was all I could do. Gina's face changed when she saw my expression. She walked fast to my register. "What happened?" I finally got the word out. "Gun. He took..." Gina swore and grabbed her radio. "Manager to the front, a P to the front, now!" The radio crackled instantly with overlapping voices. "What's the situation? Where is he? Lock the doors?" The salaried manager, Keith, the same kind of manager every Walmart has, always looking like he's running late, came jogging up. "What's going on?" "Robbery," Gina snapped. "He just hit 7. He had a gun." Keith's eyes widened, and for a moment he looked like a kid. Then he forced his face into manager mode. "Lock the doors," he said into his radio. A maintenance guy ran to the entrance. The automatic doors kept sliding open and closed because customers were still leaving. Nobody knew. Keith yelled, "Stop! We're closing now!" The robber was already outside. A P showed up, breathless, and ran to the AP office. I could see the monitors through the window, black and white camera feeds of the front, the lot, the aisles. The robber's figure was on one screen, walking away across the vestibule. Another screen showed the parking lot with a few cars leaving. Keith asked me questions fast. What did he look like? Where did he go? What did he say? Nothing. I answered like I was reading from a script I didn't want. Hoodie, hat, quiet voice. "Don't look at me." Gina stood close like she could keep me upright. Someone called 911. The police arrived faster than I expected. 2 officers, then 3. They asked me to repeat everything, and repeating it made it feel more real, like I was sealing it into place. They pulled camera footage from AP. They watched it in the AP office with the door half closed, and I stood in the front end feeling exposed, like every customer could see I'd been the register that got robbed. One of the officers asked, "Did he point the weapon at you?" "No," I said. "He just showed it." "Did he threaten you?" He said, "Don't be a hero." The officer wrote it down like it was a normal thing to hear. The front end got cleared out. Customers were told the store was closing early due to an incident. Some complained. One lady demanded to know if she could still return something tomorrow. People are incredible. After the police left to search the lot and roads, we were told to keep working because the store needed to be recovered and the tills needed to be counted. That made me furious. Furious in a way that felt like it could burn a hole through my chest. I said, "I'm going home." Keith looked at me like I was asking for a favor. "We need statements." I gave a statement. "We need you to..." "No," I said louder than I meant. My voice cracked. "I'm done. I'm leaving." Gina touched my arm. "Go," she said quietly, to me, not to Keith. I grabbed my stuff from the break room. The vending machine lights were too bright. Someone's leftover chips sat on the table like nothing had changed. The time clock was right there, and the normal act of clocking out felt insane. Like punching out could make a gun disappear. Outside, the parking lot was lit and emptying. Rain had started while we were inside, fine drizzle that made the asphalt shine. The police car's lights strobed against the glass doors in silent blue and red. I walked to my car with my keys between my fingers like I'd seen people do in movies, and then I hated myself for it because it felt performative, but I didn't stop. As I drove out, I saw the robber's abandoned basket still on the belt at Register 7, like a little joke. 2 days later, AP told us they caught him, not through heroics, not because he came back, because he used the same car he always used, and a camera caught the plate as he left the lot, and the police tracked him to a motel. When Keith told me, he tried to sound upbeat like it was a success story. "They got him," he said. "You're safe." Safe didn't feel like a real word anymore, not in that place. The guy got arrested. That's the ending people like, because it closes the loop. It doesn't feel like closure from the inside. The part that still makes my jaw tighten years later isn't that he had a gun, it's that he didn't have to raise his voice. He didn't have to act crazy. He controlled the whole moment with a calm sentence and the expectation that I would do what he said. And I did. When I think about it now, the memory that comes first isn't fear. It's anger, at him, at the system that let it be routine, at the fact that the register still beeped and printed receipts afterward like it hadn't been used as a stage for something ugly. And those were 3 scary Walmart horror stories, proof that even the brightest stores can feel unsettling. Once the aisles go quiet and the parking lot starts to empty. If these stories made your next late-night shopping trip feel a little different, subscribe to Dark Hours for more true horror and real stories hidden in everyday places. And tell me in the comments which story creeped you out the most. Until next time, stay aware, Trust your instincts. And remember, sometimes the scariest places are the ones you think are completely normal.